This is a presentation on Joel E. Ringdahl. My name is Amanda Cahow, and this is my final Behaviorist biography project. Dr. Ringdahl attended the University of Florida and earned his Bachelor's of Science in Psychology in 1992, and then he went on to attend Louisiana State University, where he earned his Master's of Arts in 1995 and finally his PhD in psychology in 1999. Dr. Ringdahl is the co-editor of a book, and his research has been published in many journals, one of them professionally known as the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis, or JABA. He worked as a psychologist in Iowa, and Dr. Ringdahl is now in Georgia. Dr. Ringdahl is alive and well and researching there. He is an associate professor at the University of Georgia. Dr. Ringdahl is also affiliated with the Center for Autism and Behavioral Education Research, which is a part of the University of Georgia. And he also spends his time researching with special education and other applied behavior analysis clinics. Dr. Ringdahl is also now an associate editor of JABA. Dr. Ringdahl's area of interest is with humans, more specifically with children and individuals with disabilities, or those with autism as well. And he's curious about reinforcement schedules that decrease severe problem behavior. Dr. Ringdahl has devoted a lot of research to non-contingent reinforcement, where a reinforcer is delivered contingent upon the passage of time and regardless of problem behavior. He has also looked at differential reinforcement of alternative behavior, or DRA, and this is where the alternative response is reinforced over the problem behavior. And a more specific type of DRA that Dr. Ringdahl has done research with is functional communication training, which is basically training a response where an individual can request or demand for a reinforcer. And this is important because we want to find a way to respond that is more socially acceptable than, say, throwing a tantrum. So the first article that I looked at was one of Dr. Ringdahl's earlier studies, and the team looked at 3 participants with mild to severe mental retardation. They took a baseline and attempted to use a fixed time schedule, and they used schedules that were similar or dissimilar, and then compared them to the baseline. The FT schedule that was dissimilar, where the reinforcers were delivered to the participants either more or less, actually decreased response rates more significantly than the FT similar schedule when they were compared to the extinction condition. The next article I found was actually a review of non-contingent reinforcement, and Dr. Ringdahl wrote this one on his own. He reviewed non-contingent reinforcement as a treatment method for decreasing problem behaviors that are severe in individuals with disabilities. And the research he found talked about density of reinforcer and how this can impact whether or not behavior can be decreased. One limitation that Dr. Ringdahl discussed was the use of non-contingent reinforcement as long-term maintenance. He suggested the potential use of non-contingent reinforcement in combination with differential reinforcement of alternative behavior, or DRA. And so I was curious to see if his other studies were going to go review off of this. So the next article I found was 5 years later, and Dr. Ringdahl also investigates non-contingent reinforcement. This time he looks at how a signal can enhance behavior and how it can help this negative behavior decrease, because we want our reinforcement schedules to be more effective. So Dr. Ringdahl and his team wanted to see if having a timer signal would help this behavior decrease. So if the participant heard the timer and knew the reinforcer was coming, the team wanted to see what this would do. They used one participant and found that using the signals resulted in more effective non-contingent reinforcement, or a decrease in severe problem behaviors. Dr. Ringdahl and his team noted that it's important to take into consideration the effect of positive reinforcement with preferred reinforcers to minimize problem behaviors. The fourth article by Dr. Ringdahl and his colleague was on a behavioral phenomenon he calls resurgence. This is where a behavior that was previously reinforced shows up again. After some time of the response not being reinforced, an alternative response being reinforced, and then extinction of reinforcers for both responses. And this article was just another review. So Dr. Ringdahl goes over some studies that have talked about whether or not this behavioral phenomenon might pop up. Some factors that can determine whether resurgence might occur is how long reinforcement has been in place and the amount of time the individual has been exposed to the alternative treatment. The final article I found is from 2018, and this is by Dr. Ringdahl and a huge team, and they looked at an individual's preference for response and how this may or may not affect whether their behavior changes. So this article involved 2 experiments. There were 7 participants total. They used functional communication training in participants with little problem behavior and communication delays in the first experiment, and then used FCT on individuals with more severe problem behaviors. And the team found that having a preferred mand can help decrease problem behaviors and increase how an individual responds. So if I were to interact with Dr. Ringdahl, the interview questions I would ask him are, what event or experience in your life led to your curiosity for studying behavior? What led to you teaching and researching at the University of Georgia? Which reinforcement schedule is most effective in your own life and why? What has been your favorite part about working with the University of Georgia Center for Autism and Behavioral Education Research? And finally, if you could give one piece of advice to a future behavior analyst, what would it be? Dr. Ringdahl has done a lot of fantastic research, and he really does aim to find reinforcement schedules that work well with decreasing problem behaviors, especially those that are severe and not socially acceptable. The research that I found by Dr. Ringdahl and that I read by him, he really looks at the schedules and how using signals and response preference can impact whether or not these severe behaviors will decrease. And Dr. Ringdahl's research has grown a lot over the last decade that he's been researching. And if his studies continue to be as complex as the one I most recently found, then I believe the field of behavior analysis will greatly benefit from Dr. Ringdahl's research, because it is important to consider these mands and how people might want to respond. Overall, I really enjoyed researching about Dr. Ringdahl, and I look forward to seeing what his future research will bring out, because I think the work that he has already done with reinforcement schedules and these preferences and figuring out how signals impact reinforcer delivery can and will be really helpful for this field. And I know in my personal experience, I have dealt with children and clients who have had extremely severe problem behaviors. So anyone who has dealt with that might really benefit from Dr. Ringdahl's further research. So I look forward to seeing what he and his teams will figure out in the future. These are the references that I used for my presentation and my paper. Thank you so much for watching my Behaviorist biography presentation on Dr. Joel E. Ringdahl.